Good afternoon. Thank you. It's nice to have a responsive audience today. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Savannah-Chatham County Board of Education. I will ask our board secretary if this has been posted, and she assures me it has. Will we now all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll now have the approval of the agenda. Dr. Bringman?
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the following revisions. Deletion of 7.17 RFP 23-19 District Copier Fleet Management Services and District Print Center Management Services 5-year lease agreement. And also revisions to 7.22 Policy KM and 7.24 Policy JJ.
It has been moved. Seconded. All in favor? And that is 8-0.
Motion to amend the approved agenda to add the following items. 7.28 Board Amendment to Legal Services Contract Update. 7.29 Workers' Compensation Settlement Case Numbers SBWC number 2021-116341, SBWC number 2023-038316, and item 7.30 Workers' Compensation Settlement Cases, case numbers SBWC number 2022-047701, SBWC number 2022-113203, and finally 7.31 Signature Authority.
It's been moved. Seconded. All in favor? 8-0. Thank you. Okay, announcements. And we want everyone to attend this. We have our Back to School Expo, July 22nd from 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. at the Savannah Civic Center. Again, it is at the Savannah Civic Center. And again, it's July 22nd. Put it on your calendar. All right. We have some committee meetings that the public is invited to attend. We have our board accountability meeting on Tuesday, July 25th, here in the Whitney Complex at 3:30 p.m. We have our Capital Improvement Committee on Wednesday, July 26th, here in the Whitney Building at 9 a.m. And let's see here. Oh, we have our AA Schools Open Drive Carefully campaign Tuesday, August 1st at 208 Bull Street on the front steps from 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. And here's the really important date. And young men, you'll really want to know this date. Our first day of school. They could not be less nonplussed. Okay, the first day of school is Thursday, August 3rd. Yes.
Can we please have the record state that Dr. Howard Hall
Yes.
fell ill during lunch and has taken a leave of absence from this meeting?
Okay. We're sad to announce we've had some recent deaths. Alan Barong, high school counselor at Jenkins High School, June 15th. Berdina Hendry, bus driver, died June 24th. And Adrian Eason, a SPED interrelated teacher at Southwest Middle School, on June 26th. Let's see if I have any more. Okay. Could we all stand for a moment of silence? So, just a little housekeeping here. We will not be able to use the electronic voting mechanism, and Ms. Tamika Edwards, who will be sitting in as our board secretary today, will be tracking the votes. I will announce the votes, as we always do, after each action is taken, so the public knows how the board voted on each recommendation. All right, let's keep this topic moving. All right, and it is my pleasure to introduce, in her first meeting as our superintendent, Dr. Denise Watts.
I am excited that one of the first formal things that I get to do with the public today is to celebrate some good news, which will certainly bring about some calls for applause. Recently, several Savannah-Chatham County Public School System staff members and partners attended the Georgia Association for Career and Technical Education Summer Leadership Conference in Athens, Georgia, and several great, amazing things happened there. Dr. Angie Lewis, Executive Director of OCCR and MSAT, was named Administrator of the Year for the Division of Junior ROTC. Amy Perry, CTAE Director, was recognized for completing the CTAE New Directors Academy. And our business partner, Ashley DuBois of Member First Credit Union, was named Outstanding Business Partner of the Year for the Division of Georgia Business Education Association. A special congratulations also to our communications department. The National School Public Relations Association recently recognized our team with 9 awards through the Publication and Digital Media Excellence Recognition Program. Very excited and proud of that. Awards included an Award of Excellence for Video Production, 3 Awards of Merit for print publications, including the 2022 Annual Report, and 5 honorable mentions for other communication productions, to include the SCCPSS CTAE video. Very exciting. Congratulations to that team. As we think about our school opening, I would like to recognize Godly Station K-8 School Science Olympiad team. While everyone else has been enjoying summer, that team has been very busy as they recently participated in the State Science Olympiad competition at Kennesaw State University. The team members arrived very enthusiastic and celebrated after a very long day of competing, and during that time placed in the top 10 for 3 separate events. Congratulations to the Godly Station K-8 Science Olympiad students and teachers for their hard work and innovation. Brock Elementary School, also very busy this summer. One of 300 schools from across the nation, 36 states to be exact, to receive a $5,000 grant from the Laura Bush Foundation for America's Libraries. This Laura Bush Foundation for America's Libraries awarded $1.5 million in library grants this year, and we are excited that the Brock Elementary students will benefit from that in the upcoming school year. Bank of America has also recently announced 2 of our students as student leaders, which is an 8-week paid summer internship providing students with experience in serving in their communities. As a part of this program, the students will develop leadership and practical workforce skills while working with Goodwill Southeast Georgia in a paid position. Please join me in congratulating Tyrone Ford Everett from Savannah Arts Academy and James Thompson from Savannah Early College High School. What great experience those students are getting. The YMCA of Coastal Georgia will pilot an innovative program in partnership with the Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools and has awarded $25,000 as an Innovating Education Prototype Grant recipient. Monies were received through the Georgia Foundation for Public Education. This program is centered around the use of music as a tool to increase academic progress and to teach piano to improving reading and math proficiency. The money will be used to increase the foundational equipment and materials at several of our schools that will pilot the program, to include A.B. Williams Elementary, Otis J. Brock Elementary, Mercer Middle, Doreen Middle, and West Chatham Middle. Additionally, I would like to extend congratulations to the graduates of the Operation 15 Summer Camp, which is hosted by the SCCPSS Campus Police Department. This summer camp teaches rising 7th through 10th graders leadership and character skills using a military science model of education that works closely with the Hunter, Army, Airfield, and law enforcement organizations. Thank you so much to our campus police department for your investment in our scholars, and congratulations to our students who completed this program. We'd also like to offer big gratitude to the Front Porch organization for their school uniform drive. The Front Porch is a collaborative of several service agencies, Chatham County and SCCPSS, that provides a safety net for our students and families. One hurdle, as we know for some of our students for the upcoming school year, will be cleared as the Front Porch has teamed up with Educate Chatham Foundation to purchase over $7,000 worth of school uniforms for our students in need. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mark your calendars for July 22nd. I think you already heard from our school board chair that it's the annual Back to School Expo at the Savannah Civic Center. This event will start at 10 a.m. and end at 3 p.m. Representatives from Student Services, Transportation, School Nutrition, and other district departments will be on hand to answer questions about a myriad of things that we know are important for school opening, bus routes, free and reduced lunch, where you can get school uniforms and supplies, and much, much more. Learn about our schools. We want to invite you out to find out what is unique, what are our strengths in our school system, learn and mingle with our business partners to make sure that our students are ready for a successful 23-24 school year. Finally, this didn't get a lot of enthusiasm from you, but I'm going to try it again. School starts on August the 3rd, and I'm very excited about that. We're excited about commencing the upcoming school year. We will be on tour that day, watching all of our scholars head back to the classroom for a successful year. Please take a moment to also remember our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our social workers, custodians, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, campus police, principals, assistant principals, and all of our amazing staff who make Savannah-Chatham Public Schools a premier school district. Before I close out this amazing good news report, We do have some special guests with us in the audience today that I would like to recognize and celebrate. This group of students comes from the Young Male Readiness Camp, who are poised and will be our exemplars this year for an outstanding school year. 3rd through 5th grade boys attended this camp for 3 weeks in order to strengthen their academic skills, their character development, and other life skills. To recognize their achievements, I'd like to invite our very own Dr. Cortina Miller-Fields, along with Sylvester Formey, who will tell us more about this special gift for these young scholars, and ask Mr. Sylvester Formey to please come to the podium to give some short remarks. Dr. Miller-Fields will be on the other side of the horseshoe to issue our certificates.
Thank you and welcome, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you.
Mr. President and board, illustrious board, Kurt's over there about to bite his tongue off because he told me don't speak any more than an hour and a half. So I'm going to cut it by half an hour. Anyway, this is all about the young fellas today, okay? This is a magnificent program, and I've been involved with it for a number of years here, but I haven't done anything. Dr. Fields, Miller-Fields, told me if I didn't get over here with these certificates that I shouldn't show my face over there on East Broad anymore. That's my main reason for being here. Scared of her. That's a backhanded compliment, all right? She, again, she has 3 folks here that I'm really amazed about the way they handle things with these young fellows. I'll start backwards. I want to tell Dr. Miller-Fields that Jamal Bianchi, stand up, sir, they all know you, but he's a social worker, and Ms. Jira Haraldez. They manage this group with such deft hand. These guys really enjoy coming in early every day. I asked them what would they be doing if they weren't here. About half the group said they'd be playing soccer. Okay, a couple of them said they'd be reading and that sort of stuff. But what more I thought about, Belinda, wait, she's got a broken foot over there. But I don't feel bad for her because she just got back from Aruba, broke it down. Okay, so don't cry. These folks have been going at this for over 15 years. And I thought about it, I said, this is actually what we're all about. My old man used to say, you start right, you should finish right, okay? Starting with these guys, and they have pretty tough taskmasters, you can see that, okay? And I really, all right? Do a lot of different stuff. A lot of folks from the community come in, talk to them, try to build character, tell them what they need to do, stay focused, et cetera. And this is a serious group. This is a serious group of folks. They're all pretty much serious. Last year, was it last year or the year before? We went out on the high seas out there to chase the big ships in the pilot boats and that sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff we do. Yes, please stand up. Please stand up, okay? All right? So, she wants y'all to walk around this.
Oh, absolutely.
Horseshoe. All right, stand around there and go meet these board members and shake their hands, look them in the eye and shake their hands and say, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm not going to stop until I finish and keep on going up the road. All right?
Thank you, sir.
He's a really good guys.
Who's your favorite player?
You want him to stay there?
Keep up the hard work. Keep up the hard work. Keep up the
Okay,
hard
go
work.
over there with, okay.
Great job. Keep up the
All
hard
right.
work. Keep up the hard work. Keep up the hard work.
I'm here
Good
today to
job.
give them a little financial reward. Certificates. The boss got them over there. Huh? Well, you want to know what it is? $5,000 per kid. That's what not really. It's a financial. financial reward for them. But now, taking pictures, leaving me out. But I want to say something to them, okay? I was kind of joking here. This is a serious thing. That's why we continue to keep doing it. I want you to listen to me and think individually as I express this. And I'm going to sit down, Kurt, believe it or not. All right, okay? I'm going to issue what I would consider a blessing, okay? You should figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the greatest have had. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 hands, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise. Look them over, the wise and the great. They take their food from a common plate, and with similar knives and forks they use, and with similar laces they tie their shoes. Start from the top. Courage must come from within the man. So start from the top and say, I can. Come back next year.
Well, that was an amazing preface for my opportunity to give an update to the school board on my entry plan. I'm such a student-centered leader, a student-centered educator, that to have those students come before me is an honor. Again, I want to extend a congratulations to them. I continue to be very, very excited about my entry plan and my entry and transition as the 25th superintendent of Savannah-Chatham Public School System. I continue to be compelled by both the strengths and opportunities of this district and recognize that as I transition into the district, that transition period is a very fragile time. It's a fragile time because it marks an opportunity to build trust, relationships. There's an awful lot of learning, history, and context that I have to get under my belt in order to lay a foundation and provide the leadership that is needed to take this district from good to great. And most importantly, to give our students the education that they deserve. So for the next few minutes, I would like to spend giving the board and the public some insight into the strategic way that I would like to enter the district so that I can make the most of this very fragile time and do it in a strategic and thoughtful way. There are actually several goals here that I hope to accomplish over the next 100 days as I look at an entry into the district. First and foremost, I think it's important that you seek first to understand. Before you go in taking a lot of action, you listen and you learn. So my entry plan is grounded in the fact that I want to gain insight into key events, issues, and concerns. That's already started. And so that I can have maximal influence moving us forward. I want to learn about the values, the norms, the expectations, and most importantly, the goals and the vision for this community. That's going to require me to, in that 100 days, examine the current realities and establish some key levers and actions that will accelerate academic achievement in our school system. As I've already alluded to, it is extremely important to me that during this fragile time, I take the time to build trust, productive and collaborative relationships with our board, staff, students, partners, and community. But I realize you all are not going to let me just take 100 days to do that. So there has to be some proactive actions that I take in the immediate time that I have now that will better position us as a district for accelerating our student outcomes. So you'll hear me talk a little bit about that moving forward. And lastly, while we didn't get a great response to the first day of school beginning, I do think one of my primary leadership roles in the next 100 days is to begin to build excitement, momentum, hope, and belief in our collective efforts to make our school system world-class, not only for our students, but also for our staff. So in order to do that, you've already heard me say, and you'll continue to hear me say, I will maintain a learning orientation and a relationship building orientation. I will ask a lot of questions, and I will be serving as the lead learner for the district over the next 100 days. So that is a key priority. But as I said before, there is some action that we have to take now. And so what you'll see in the next two priorities is where I'm really putting stakes in the ground as it relates to moving forward. We will bolster our literacy plan. We have a literacy plan. I want to acknowledge and celebrate all the work that went into that plan. But I want to take this opportunity, this fragile opportunity that we're in, to make sure that we have put all that is possible into that plan and launch implementation steps for alignment with the science of reading. And lastly, we have some schools that continue to experience challenges. I want to make sure that we get into those schools, really understand by doing a needs assessment and an analysis of what's happening at those schools so that we can put those schools back on track to realize and manifest the learning potential of each of our students. In order to operationalize those three priorities, there are two immediate actions that I am currently working on. Again, action orientation that I'm already taking. One is to really study the central office supports and personnel and look to do a redesign or a restructure so that we're aligning ourselves to the strategic plan, but also so that we can improve efficiencies and enhance our organizational coherence. Secondly, I know we spent the early part of this morning talking about millage and taxes. Our tax dollars and the way we spend money is extremely important. So I'm also committed to evaluating the central office budget, staff, and other resources to see where we can find cost savings. And as those are uncovered, redeploy those dollars and supports to, again, align to those key priorities around literacy and support to our chronically underperforming schools. So I want to talk just a minute about all three of those priorities so that you can have just a little bit more context into the strategy that I'm using over the next 100 days. What will be available to you in the next couple of days is a very public-facing entry plan. It will be prominent on our webpage. I want our public, our community, our students and staff to have access to my roadmap. And this is a roadmap that I literally have with me now, that I sleep under my pillow with every night, and that I will be referring to very often because it is the guide for how I'd like to enter the district. There is an emphasis, as you will see, on listening, learning, and assessing the current state of the district. I will be having a multitude of conversations. I've already reached out to many people to have conversations and asked them for the names of people to continue to have conversations with. But those conversations will be held with student focus group, teacher focus groups, parents, school visits, community forums that we're already planning, and partnership meetings. I'm also looking to establish and launch a transition team. That will be a body of both internal and external stakeholders to the school district, parent representation, community partner representation that will sit with me over the next 100 days and give perspective and feedback to guide my entry over the next 100 days. At the end of the 100 days, what I would like to be able to provide for the public is a report. Here's what I heard. Here's what you told me. Here are my findings. Here are the themes that I heard across multiple stakeholder groups. And then with this board, we will decide what to do with that information. So that is what I hope to deliver, what I will deliver to us to highlight the lessons learned and next steps. As you look at the entry plan that will be available to you over the next couple of days, you will notice these are the areas in which I am taking a critical deep dive. All of these are central office areas. For the most part, again, that's important in order to look for efficiencies and to reorganize ourselves in a way that is conducive to the goals that we aspire for our students. But there's also a critical element around parent and community engagement and communications. I realize that a part of building trust, not only does that take consistency and time, but it also takes transparency and access. And people have to know and understand what's going on so that they don't create their own narratives. And so what I can commit to you is that there'll be a strong emphasis on engagement and communication moving forward. I want to talk just a second more about bolstering our literacy plan. I see literacy as being the social justice issue of our time. And until we have literacy and justice for all, we should not sleep as a community. Literacy is something that impacts every demographic of student, every municipality across our city and county. And it is what the state has put a stake in the ground and said that we have to focus on. I will be, as your superintendent, promoting literacy as the North Star for our district. It's where I will try to unify every community. While everyone has their own perceptions about things that need to change or should change, I think we all can agree how important reading, writing, and speaking is for our students. So that will serve as a unifier for us. I will be taking the time to learn from other districts and not doing away. I want to be clear. We have a literacy plan in place. A lot of investment, time, sweat, equity went into creating that plan. But I want to look to take that plan from good to great and make sure that it has the resources that actually support it. So we will be looking at our curricular resources. We'll be making sure that there's high quality training from the board all the way down to the classroom so that everyone really understands the science of reading. And we'll be looking at a redesign for our central office to make sure that there's clarity in not only what we're doing, but the people in central office that will be supporting literacy implementation. Finally, I'm a strong believer in accountability. And you can't have accountability. You can't hold me accountable unless there are metrics and a cadence of monitoring. So we'll be looking at establishing some key metrics that we will be evaluating on an ongoing basis so that we know when to make adjustments, and at the end of the year, we know what to celebrate and what to pivot on. So those are some of the actions that I plan to take. You've already heard me allude to this. I'm going to say it again because I believe it. Literacy is the social justice issue of our time. The science of reading is a science. We have to treat it as such. We have to follow the science. And it will be the best tool that we can access to accomplish this vision of literacy and justice for all. Studying and determining the needs for our chronically underperforming schools will be another focus area for myself. And I'm going to be 100% transparent. I'm not coming into this providing an answer or a prescription of how to fix chronic underperformance of schools. I think that is a very layered problem, one that we should be committed to fixing and making sure that our students have the learning opportunities they need. But I do have a vision for what it should look like. I do believe it should be sustainable. So we can't just throw money at things because money is a recurring need. So whatever we do has to be sustainable within our budget, has to be sustainable and replicable, and it has to be innovative. We've tried some things, but what haven't we tried? Or what haven't we tried long enough so that we can truly transform those schools to what we know they can be. And in order to transform them, we're not going to immediately have high proficiency. but we do have to accelerate academic growth. With these particular students, we have to have more than a year's worth of growth in a year's time. A year is what we expect of every student, but for these students, that we have to accelerate that. And that means taking a look in the mirror. Where do we have system deficiencies? Where have we not done what we need to do as a community, as a district, to support the instructional core and to meet the needs of these students? So we'll be looking to establish a menu of some supports and interventions, but I'm not ready to come out the gate and say, here's the answer to the problem. We have to study those factors a little bit more. And most importantly, we want to build capacity and competency, because while we have 7 or 8 schools on the list, another school may pop up in a year or 2 from now, right? So we want to make sure that we have built the internal capacity and competency to address any school that needs to accelerate student learning. And lastly, urgency and accountability. You'll hear me talk about that a lot. We should all be a little uncomfortable right now. If there is one school, in fact, if there's one student in this district that is not reading, writing, doing math, and understanding science at the level that we want for all students, then that should make us all uncomfortable. That could be my child or your child. Most importantly, it's the future of this community. So the increase in urgency and accountability will be extremely important. So how will we do this? How will we make this vision come to life? I plan to, in those schools, conduct a full site-based needs assessment. I want to evaluate and audit central office to make sure that we have the supports and structures in place. We want to do some SWOT analysis, because there are some good things happening in these schools. What are those good things, and how can we maximize those things, and or determine the root causes for things that are not happening the way we want them to happen. And I personally will be visiting each of these schools so that I can learn firsthand. I'll certainly generate data. I'll have lots of reports given to me. I'll hear lots of perspectives. But what I know to be true is data never lies, but it doesn't tell the whole truth either. And in order for me to better understand these schools, I have to be present in them to understand what's happening in those schools. So those are the actions that you can expect from me as it relates to those schools. And lastly, how do we operationalize this plan? I've alluded to the importance of now is the time. It's a paramount opportunity for us to pause and reimagine. We have an old way. We have an old structure. That's not to say that the old structure was not a good structure, but you have a new superintendent, and there's an opportunity now to look at things through a new lens. And so I hope to have the opportunity with you all to reimagine and restructure central office so that we provide the supports and resources needed. So what does that look like? First and foremost, I want people to hear me say cost neutral. I'm not looking to add anything. I'm looking to do things in a cost neutral way, so we can determine the roles and programs. Some may need to sunset, which means some things may need to end so that we can start some new things, and so that we can most importantly redeploy resources to our priority areas. We will be taking a deep look at central office, and it may mean reconfiguring and moving staff, getting people on the right seats on the bus. It could mean moving divisions. The goal here, though, is to create coherence, better oversight, better accountability, and better calibration. Central office is in service of schools. And if we're not operating optimally in service of schools, we need to make sure that we get there as quickly as possible. So I've already asked for what critical vacancies do we have, maybe looking at some internal and external recruiting, hiring, and onboarding of staff. Most importantly, when everybody settles in the seat that they're supposed to be in, it will be my job to establish and communicate very clear expectations to everyone, to provide support and training. But again, referring back to metrics, to make sure that there are metrics in place where at the end of the day, we can say, yes, you fulfilled your role, or no, you did not. So having that collective accountability will be extremely important. I'd like to end with this statement. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with courage and excellence. And I'm very thankful that everyone has checked on me this week. Everyone's been maybe a little surprised that I've shown up to day 3, but I'm going to show up tomorrow and the next day and the next day. That takes courage from me. It takes courage from all of us collectively. And everything that we do should be ground and centered in excellence. Our kids are depending on us to get it right for them. So with that said, a call to action, because I know a lot of this has been about Denise Watts, as it should be, the superintendent. But what I am clear about is that Denise Watts cannot do this alone. This is going to require a collective effort, a collective focus, a collective resilience, because we're not going to always disagree. We're not going to always agree. There will be dissonance, and I invite that dissonance, and I'm actually very comfortable in dissonance. But at the end of the day, we have to be resilient. We have to be willing to come back to the table day after day after day after day. Because here's what I know to be true. Every day we defer or delay is a day our students will not have the excellence that they deserve. So I invite all of you to become a part of this work, join with me arm in arm, hand in hand, knee to knee, as we work collaboratively with the greater school system and community so that our students get the education that they need and deserve. The work begins now. Questions from the board?
No, let's get going.
I'm just saying, we're ready to move with you.
Okay.
And
yes.
we're happy to have you.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Yes, Ms.
I would just comment to say thank you for your effort and this work that shows a clear vision. I look forward to supporting your work. I look forward to seeing what your 100 or less than 100 days of study reveals and how that will inform the decisions that we need to make to support your vision.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
I want to echo what Dr. Hoskins-Brown said. And at the same time, one thing that I really enjoy hearing is the fact that you like to listen. I was taught at a very young age that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, that we listen twice as much as we speak. So I'm very optimistic. And as everybody around this horseshoe knows, that we very rarely agree 100% together, 9-0. So the fact that you got that 9-0 vote says a lot about who you are, what research we did, and the character that you've brought to the table.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions?
Anyone else?
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Moving along in the agenda, Mr. Board President, board officers, Madam Superintendent, members of the board, and your Board of Education matters. We do have some policy reviews for your consideration. These are all 4-year reviews. Most of them you'll find have changes to the regulation side that we deemed were necessary. The first one, item 6.01, this is the policy JBC 3. It's associated with policy JBC, but this is the regulation side, JBC 3 for Social Security numbers. These are the requirements for school admissions and registrations. We did note that there was a need for improved cleanup language here and references that are better serving our current level of operations. Primarily, though, we did want to state a reference to the Social Security waiver form that is required if a parent refuses to provide that number. Regulation changes only. Hearing no comments, moving along in the agenda on item 6.02. This is also this one is a 4-year review as well. Specifically, no policy changes associated with this recommendation as well. Regulation side only. We are bundling the policy with this particular review in this component that we're bringing forward to the board. So after this review, if there are no comments from the board on any policy recommendations, we would ask that the board does attest through this process that the 4-year review is complete. On the regulation side of the House, we did find it necessary to delete the exhibit, which was somewhat redundant in the fact that we were calling for other ways to engage with our families in the work that we do to account for student fines, fees, and any changes. And it was also important for us on the regulation side to clearly define what equipment is. That's the major change that you see in this regulation.
Any questions? Sorry, any questions? Okay. Do you need us to? Do we need
Very
to
good.
accept?
Say again?
Do we need to accept this?
No,
Okay,
we have it written in the agenda that subject to any comments of the board that this will attest the fact that the 4-year review is complete. Hearing none, we'll move forward. Item 6.03, this is also a 4-year review. However, this is strictly a policy. This policy on the 4-year review is the purchasing or credit card use. You'll note that there is not an associated regulation with this policy as is currently configured in our policy code manual. We did determine that there was a need for some cleanup language, and we did strike a lot of extra words that were in here because we really want our employees to be diverted to using an employee handbook, which is the administrative way that we manage this policy, and that handbook is produced through the finance department. So this is a first reader on the 4-year policy review.
Okay. Ms. Hoskins Brown.
Thank you. I think I agree with removing the high level of detail from the policy. However, it probably would be good to direct personnel to the handbook in the policy. If we could do that.
Yeah, I think we could easily, the handbook has been around for quite a while. I don't see it changing. One of the reasons we thought it was good to have a handbook approach is because if there are changes, if you embed that into a regulation, you're constantly bringing it back to the board for review of changes or modifications or tweaks in that. Now, one thing we can do certainly on the policy is specifically reference the use of an employee handbook as an administrative document, if I hear you correctly.
Yes, that was my suggestion, just to indicate from the governance side for future board members that there is a handbook that covers details, or for anyone who would be using the policy. And then, like you said, the handbook is a living document that can change over time. Thank you.
Very good. And of course, this is a first reader, so we'll make those amendments and bring it back for the board's subsequent review and adoption in the August board meeting. Final item for the board's review under the policy matters, under board matters, 6.04. This is the Gifted Students Program. Once again, this is a 4-year review. This is bundled with the policy. No changes on the policy side, so subject to this review by the board, we will attest that the 4-year review has been done if there are no recommended changes in the policy language. On the regulation side, we do have some modifications that we are bringing forward. This is primarily clarifying how a student is removed from probationary status in the event that their academic standards do not meet the mark. There is a way to be removed from probationary status and maintain your enrollment in the gifted programs, and we did feel it was necessary to provide better clarity on that language.
Ms. Grabowski.
This is not really about the regulation, but just for clarification from our academic team. It specifies gifted education course, and in our schools where a student where the gifted program is kind of just interwoven and not necessarily a specific course, does that relate to their academic courses as a whole?
I think if you look in the Following that, it specifically identifies the course number is the identifier for that.
Okay, thank you.
So they're put into a specific course number to indicate they're receiving those services.
Okay, so for an elementary school student, for example, their record would just reflect a different course number
Yes.
that indicates the gifted program.
Yes,
component.
there's a change in the number to
Okay.
indicate they receive gifted services.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hoskins Brown, then Ms. Hall.
Thank you. This is, I'm looking at the second paragraph in the regulation where it says the school will develop an improvement plan in collaboration with the teacher of the course in which the student has not obtained 80%. Sometimes inability to attain 80% is about the difficulty of the material. Sometimes it's about other issues related with the student. Does the improvement plan include any other sort of social supports, or is a counselor involved is there anything in that improvement plan that gives the district an opportunity to understand if the student is not performing other than reasons related to rigor?
So in the improvement plan, while it is focused on academics, there should be an opportunity, if not for the counselor, then for a mentor or some adult in the building that child has an established rapport with. We'll check those plans and make sure that that's inclusive, but someone who may know more about the student than just the academic performance side, so that they can get to those issues and then share them and address them appropriately through counseling services or administration if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hall.
Mr. Hediger, I've often brought up the thought about updating the identification process of our gifted program. Is that discussion, conversation being had anywhere in the updating of the policy and regulation?
It did not come to fruition in this particular policy review. I'm quite confident that that's something that is happening in the realm of our academic affairs team, and I would defer to Ms. Ball-Oliver for any specifics on how that's managed. If there was a feel that the board determined that that was something of high level and required to memorialize in policy language, that could certainly be considered on the second review. But again, these are things that we want to be careful that with the work that we're doing on the policy side is work that we can certainly adhere to, and that we don't create with some language a ministerial action which could then subsequently create a policy violation somewhere down the line. So what that means basically is this could be a component that you're speaking about that really falls to administrative oversight.
Okay, well, specifically, I'm aware at this point that if I'm a teacher and I feel that Ms. Grabowski has shown evidence that she needs to be tested for gifted, that's the way that she would be possibly entering the gifted program. But there don't seem to be any other avenues. I can't self-nominate. My family cannot nominate. It seems like that's the only purview right now, is if a teacher deems me worthy. Am I correct in that assumption?
So they also look at test data, and recently the state has
Now,
allowed
who
for
is they? The administration, you're saying?
Yes,
At the
so
school
the gifted
level?
coordinator at the school site has access to test scores. Test score data can also be examined. So if a teacher or that recommendation you speak of does not happen, the state has agreed that I-Ready scores can be utilized. We saw a large increase in our gifted population this year, quite a bit, based on the fact that they have given us some additional parameters. They can come in if they feel like they want to self-nominate and have that conversation with the gifted coordinator, and then that gifted coordinator would examine whether or not they're eligible based on the guidance that's been provided by the state that requires you have to examine certain components. So there are other means of doing that, and test scores and examining those test scores are one. We actually collected the data from this past school year to show the increases, and with the use of, we will admit, the use of the additional test score I-Ready, we saw some increases in our schools that we don't normally see increases in as it relates to students being identified for gifted services.
Okay, I guess, Ms. Grabowski, I'm thinking we need to be as intentional as we can, so maybe we can bring this up in Academic Affairs Committee meeting and have that conversation and then perhaps come back to the board with some specific recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, maybe learning a bit more about the process through that
Yeah.
venue would be
Okay,
appropriate.
thank you.
Yeah.
We can have Ms. Ryan do that.
Anyone else? Okay.
Very good, thank you. And so noted, we will note that topic for a future Academic Excellence Committee meeting. Moving along in your agenda, the one action item that the board has under the Board of Education matters, the board did review as by policy requirements for the naming of a facility under a first read, a recommended name that was recommended by the committee. This name was read under a first reader during the June 7th Board of Education meeting. Now comes back to the board for a second read, review, and a subsequent vote and action. So what you have on your agenda is the naming of the K-12 multi-campus school site, and I will now turn it over to Ms. Hall, who will read the recommendation into the record.
Yes, I'm very honored to do this in the absence of our esteemed colleague, Dr. Howard Hall. She's very excited about this. In accordance with policy FDC and administrative regulation FDR-R, naming facilities, a committee has been appointed by the superintendent to provide a recommendation for the naming of the K-12 complex that will house Gould Elementary, Mercer Middle School, and Groves High School. That committee consisted of former Superintendent Dr. M. Ann Levette, Dr. Tanya Howard Hall, Ms. Bernadette Ball Oliver, Deputy Superintendent, Ms. Vanessa Miller Kegler, Deputy Superintendent, Ms. Glenda James, Principal of Gould Elementary School, Dr. Christian Panton, Principal of Mercer Middle School, and Dr. Monique Hazard Robinson, Principal of Groves High School. The proposed name was read into record during the regularly scheduled board meeting on June 7, 2023. The naming of the K-12 complex is now being presented for board action in accordance with board policy that states before adopting a name for a facility, the name shall be presented to the board at one meeting and voted on by the board at the next meeting. Thus, be it resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent that the board approves the naming of the K-12 complex as the Gould Mercer Groves K-12 Complex, GMC.
Okay. Yes.
I second.
Okay, wonderful. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Great. 8-0. Thank you. And by the way, I think it will be called GMG, correct? Yes.
Yes, correct. GMG is written on the agenda item. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Gould Mercer Grove.
Yes.
That concludes the Board of Education Matters section of today's agenda. Turning the agenda back over to the board president to move forward with your next rundown of matters, the consent agenda.
Thank you. I'll accept a motion to accept the consent agenda. So moved, seconded, second. Oh, sorry. Any discussion? Will someone please second this? Oh, yes, thank you. All in favor? Okay, that is 6, thank you. 6, any abstentions? Okay, so, one abstention? Oh, 2 abstentions, okay. Thank you. Oh, and moving on, as Kurt says. Oh, I was almost skipped right over you, Mr. Jackson, sorry.
That's okay. It's a number of things I'm doing today. I believe the next item is for the iReady license subscription toolbox and professional development. The Department of Curriculum and Instruction is seeking board approval for iReady license subscription toolbox and professional development to be purchased for district-wide elementary and middle schools, pre-K through 8th grade, and Savannah-Chatham County e-Learning Academy, 3rd through 12th grade, for school year 23-24 and school year 24-25. The iReady license subscription toolbox professional development will include iReady assessment and personalized instruction in math and reading, iReady learning teacher toolbox access in math, reading, and writing, iReady partners implementation support, and professional development. The Department of Curriculum and Instruction will purchase a 2-year contract from Curriculum Associates, LLC, for school years 23-24 and 24-25, with a cost savings of $279,460 for the second year. The subscription total cost is $2,348,660 and will be funded by ESSER 2 and 3 grant funds. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the sole source 2-year contract of the iReady license subscription toolbox and professional development at a total cost of $2,348,660.
Dr. Hoskins-Brown, and seconded by Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Of discussion? No discussion. Oh, yes, here we go.
So one, $2.3 million for a 2-year license using grant money means if this is our new standard for elementary and middle schools, we're going to need $2.3 million in 2 years, or it'll probably be 3.2 by then or something like that, without grant money on the horizon. So we just need to keep that in mind as we're budgeting. And second, I've had some inquiries from PTAs at schools who are using some programs that their staff have found to be helpful. And what I've kind of explained is I think the district's done an overall assessment of our literacy initiatives, our reading programs, et cetera. I know this is broader than just that, but we're trying to standardize what we're doing. And because we're spending this amount of money, I would just ask that we kind of go back and look at all of the one-offs individual schools are using or have used and what those licenses look like, so we can kind of, and I'm asking that we consider this,
Yes.
along with the new superintendent coming in and doing an overall assessment. But since this is going to apply for all of our elementary and middle schools, there's an opportunity here to save funds and maybe free up some budget space for 2 years from now when we don't have grant money, if we do in fact continue these programs.
Yes,
This
sir.
is a perfect opportunity, since we're rolling something out district-wide, elementary and middle, to kind of consolidate, get rid of the one-off stuff that isn't specifically needed for a particular school or particular program.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes, sir, and that's what we have been challenged with by our new superintendents over the next 100 days. So we will take a look at all of those programs and make as many recommendations as we can, and hopefully we won't have any sacred cows that we can't let go.
Okay, Mr. Johnson.
So kind of piggybacking on what Mr. Cashmar said, and you mentioned sacred cows. I've had some teachers reach out to me and ask, since we now have iReady and it's going to be probably rolling out to the district-wide, when are we getting rid of MAPS? Because when iReady first came on, teachers were told that MAP was going to be phased out. So I just didn't know if that was really happening or if they're two different assessments, because a lot of teachers feel like they're just assessing, don't have the time to teach.
We no longer give the MAP assessment. That was phased out.
Okay, thank you.
We didn't do that.
Ms. Kowalski.
This is a little bit of a tangent, but along the lines of assessments, it's my understanding that the new state legislation regarding the science of reading also does have an assessment component that is mentioned in the legislation. So that's another thing for us to be mindful of as we're looking at all of these assessments and not overburdening our teachers and our students. And hopefully the state will be flexible in the types of assessments so that we don't add yet one more on top of all the others. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
I'd just like us to make sure that we know that iReady is not just an assessment. Yeah, right. We're throwing assessment around a lot with iReady, but iReady helps facilitate learning as well, and I think does a lot better job of tailoring personalized education in a more timely fashion than the things that we typically state as assessment. So I just don't want iReady to be, equated to just assessment. It's a heck of a lot more than that. I vote for this because my kid says it makes him work, and he doesn't want it around. So that means it's definitely working.
Thank you for making that clarification. That's important. Thank you.
No more questions? Comments? All right. All in favor? 8-0. Thank you very much.
The next item, I believe, is the financial statements for the period ending May 31st. For the general fund revenues, local property taxes are currently 96% of the budget, which is higher than last year of 93.3%. The total general fund actual revenues are 96% of the current modified budget, which is also, again, higher than last year's 90.5%. So as far as revenues, we're in a very good place this year, where we do have to contribute a lot of that to the increased property values over the last couple of years for properties. General fund expenditures, actual expenditures for teachers are 77.2% of the current modified budget, which is lower than the expected 92% for this point of the year. Other support salaries are 82.6%, which is lower than the expected range of 90% and 92%. The total general fund actual expenditures are 77% of the current modified budget as compared to last year's 85%. So we're finishing the year pretty strong in the general fund. We do have some expenditures for the month of June, and we were going to have some also additional expenditures during July and August, benefits and some other items that we're going to accrue back to fiscal year 22-23. As far as the other funds, we're in pretty good shape. All of the grants are in pretty good shape for this time of the year. Nothing that sticks out. Keep in mind that most of the federal grants actually don't end until September 30th. So we have some budgets that we're going to complete in FY23. We set up some placeholder budgets in FY24. That's pretty much what we call them, to capture expenditures for the month of July and August, but they're actually part of the calendar year 23 grant for the federal government. The only other fund that we pretty much focus on, we have been focusing on the last couple of years, is school food service, which is Fund 600. Oops. We're currently showing a net profit of $682,240. But keep in mind that includes a $3.1 million operating transfer from the general fund. So far, we've transferred $2.8 million. We will continue to monitor this fund as we move forward. Again, we have this transfer in the general fund to food service. We decided not to lower the transfer for next year because most of all of the pay increases and the health insurance costs that's incurred by school food service, we bear as a district. So we don't want to make any changes until we get through the next couple of years, because the next couple of years would include all of the changes for health insurance for classified staff. So we want to make sure we had enough funding to cover that for the next couple of years. But at this time, we have no concerns with any of the other funds. Any questions?
Mr. Kachmar.
Mr. Jackson, I saw, and I think you stated that our collections are higher than they were this time last year. So it's like a 3% difference.
Correct.
So do we anticipate that final collection numbers, when we include this month, or I guess June, will be 3% over budget? Or do we know what typical collections in June have been historically?
We do have those numbers, and we do have to say the May collections were actually better than expected. The June collections are looking like they're going to be better than expected. So we're going to be probably a little higher than, we're definitely going to meet our budget, and we're going to be a little higher than what we expected so far. So we're looking pretty good, which may, again, put us in a position where we will have a contribution to fund balance instead of a use of fund balance for the current year, for FY23, I'm sorry.
Have you articulated what that expected overage will be? Will 3%, 4%, 5%, or?
The dollar amount, no, sir, not yet.
And then on the header page, it said total general fund actual expenditures are 70% or 77, I'm sorry, what am I looking at here? Expenditures for teachers and support staff were somewhere between 77 and 82% this year, whereas last year's we've been at around 92%. Is that a timing issue, or is it because of vacancies?
It's really because of vacancies. For some reason, we were a little stronger last year with having positions filled. We do have some vacancies throughout this year. There's a gap. We do have vacancies, especially as far as teachers. You might have a vacant teaching position, but you have a substitute in the classroom. So there's a body there, but the substitute doesn't make as much as a full-time teacher would, and they would not have the benefits and TRS and all of the additional costs that are incurred with a teaching position. But we do have some vacancies, additional vacancies that we did not have the year before.
So the personnel line item will be lower, but we're actually spending money on subs
contracted services
in another line item.
Yes.
Okay.
Subs, contracted services, and so on.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Okay, the next item, agenda item, is for a school security grant. The Georgia Department of Education has allocated, let me correct that, Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools $2,950,000 of funds for school security needs and enhancements included in the FY23 budget. Campus police will utilize these funds by purchasing weapons detectors, vape detectors, and associated installation costs for each of the district schools. To align the budget with the grant allowed, the budget must be adjusted by the following additional amount of $2,950,000. Below in the chart is the proposed budget to account for the $2.9 million. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the FY24 budgeted revenues and expenditures by $2,950,000 as shown in the above table to align the local budget with the school security grant allocation as approved by Georgia Department of Education.
Ms. Grabowski,
Move to approve.
seconded by Mr. Kachmar. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? 8-0. Thank you.
The next item is the East Plus 3 budget realignment, adding money to contingency. Operations staff requests the following East Plus 3 budget realignment. This action is requested to align revenue source budgets with final anticipated recognized amounts. As you can see in the chart below, the additional funds would be added as follows: $4.2 million to East Plus 3 contingency, Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the budget realignment and allocation of additional funds to the East Plus 3 contingency account.
Okay. I'll accept a motion. Thank you. Moved by Dr. Brinkman, seconded by Ms. Hall. Okay. Any discussion? No. All right. All in favor? 8-0.
All right, the next item is another East Plus 3 adjustment, East Plus 3 Jacob G. Smith budget transfer. Staff requests the following budget transfer within East Plus 3. The J.G. Smith School has changed from a new school construction to a renovation project. Funding for the renovation work is also included in the East Plus 4 budget. As a result, new school East Plus 3 funds are being returned to contingency. As shown in the table below, thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the budget transfer as noted.
Moved by Ms. Hall, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Yes, Ms. Grabowski.
Just a question, since we've had some changes in the scope, we're confident that the budget we have allocated in E4 is adequate to be able to address the needs for the renovation work?
Yes, ma'am, and that document that was prepared by our design professional is what we transmitted, but having dollars transferred back or reallocated to contingency give us that opportunity in the event there will be a need, there should be dollars available in that contingency. So you see us making two transfers now, one where we're making some realignments with some other dollars. You see in one of those lines where our capital outlay dollars came in a little higher than what was anticipated. So as we continue to work on this project and any other project, if there's a need for additional dollars, then contingency is where those funds will come from.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hall.
Ms. Kegler, since there were many deficiencies found at Jacob D. Smith, are you content that there is an urgency to move ahead with those repairs and renovations as quickly as possible?
Yes, and we provided, and I'm not sure if we provided the schedule to all of the board members. That was a part of Mrs. Grabowski's request, but we will share that with you. You'll be able to see what that schedule is for our design work and then what we're proposing for construction. So it is an active project.
Ms. Grabowski.
I think for clarification, we received the budget but not the schedule, because I was certainly interested in knowing the schedule and thought maybe that's something we could review at the CIC meeting in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, we can transmit that to you
Okay.
before the close of business today, because we do have that projected schedule. It gives you the design piece and then the construction piece.
Okay.
You'll note that in the written narrative under the query 9.04, there is references to dates on the schedule that was provided from
Sorry if
Ms.
I
Miller-Kegler, yeah.
Okay, my apologies. Thank
And
you.
any accommodations for the students being present, they have all been adjusted and worked out?
And we'll make that decision once we initiate the process, the
Oh, I
construction
see.
process.
That decision hasn't been made.
Correct.
Okay.
Oftentimes, we can phase construction, and then sometimes we may have to identify a swing site.
Any more discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? 8-0. Thank you very much.
The next two items are actually in relationship to the district's ability to purchase electric vehicles, not only buses, but campus police cars and other white fleet vehicles. The first is the budget transfer within Fund 308, electrical infrastructure for EV bus charging station. Staff requests the following budget transfer within 308 facility repair account. Construction, labor, and material for the electrical infrastructure for EV bus charging stations will be provided by Georgia Power. Funding for this project will be transferred from 308 facility repair unallocated to EV charging stations account. You see the transfer in the chart below. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the budget transfer as noted.
Ms. Grabowski.
Move to approve.
Seconded by Dr. Ringman. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I just want to say that I know that we've got the EV buses, and we got those on grant money. And then with private conversations that I was having with some people who asked me why I did not vote in favor of that, it was because we didn't have the infrastructure in place for it. This $1 million+ just shows that we did not have the infrastructure in it. I will not be supporting this.
Anyone else? Okay. Let's vote. All in favor? All right. All opposed? 7-1.
Okay, the next item is the master service agreement for energy-related services, transformer, switchgear, and electrical distribution for EV bus charging station. Georgia Power will provide construction supervision, inspection, labor, materials, tools, construction equipment, and subcontracted items as needed for the execution and completion of the electrical infrastructure for the EV bus depot following approved drawings and specifications by Delahary Weeks Engineers. I hope I said that correctly. This work will be completed under RFP C21-03, Master Service Agreement for Energy-Related Equipment Sale and Installation between Georgia Power and Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools. The total cost is $1,079,081. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the execution and completion of the electrical infrastructure for the EV bus depot by Georgia Power at a cost of $1,079,081.
Ms. Grabowski.
Move to approve this resolution in support of execution and completion of electrical infrastructure for the EV bus depot.
Seconded by Ms. Hall. Discussion? All right. Let's vote. All in favor? Thank you. 7. All opposed? 7-1.
Okay, the next item is the calendar year 2023, fiscal year 2024 final recommended tax millage levy. Under Georgia law, the Board of Public Education for the City of Savannah and the County of Chatham is a recommending authority that exercises the power to cause the levying authority, the Chatham County Commission, to levy property taxes to carry out the purposes of the Board of Education. In accordance with law and policy, it is necessary for the board to adopt the recommended calendar year 2023 millage rates for both maintenance and operations and general obligation bond indebtedness and their corresponding levies on taxable property. The calendar year 2023 millage rates used in the projection of revenues for the fiscal year 2024 budget are 17.631 mills for maintenance and operations and 0 mil for general obligation debt for a combined millage rate of 17.631 mills. The millage rates for maintenance and operation is in compliance with the rollback rate calculated by the tax assessor as required by OCGA 48-5-32.1. Final adoption of these millage rates is required at this time to meet statutory timelines for millage adoption. Accordingly, staff proposes these millage rates to be adopted. Thus, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Public Education for the City of Savannah and the County of Chatham, as provided by law, does hereby recommend to the Chatham County Commissioners and ex officio judges thereof that there be levied upon the dollar of all taxable property in Chatham County, Georgia, a general tax of 17.631 mills, a general obligation bond debt tax of 0 mil, and an aggregate millage rate of 17.631 mills for the year of 2023 for the support and maintenance of public education. Direct the staff to advertise as recommended millage rates as required by law, and direct the Secretary of the Board to transmit a certified copy of this resolution to the Chatham County Board of Commissioners.
I'll accept a motion. So moved by Ms. Hall, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I have not noticed any stakeholder coming forward to denounce the upgrade in their property tax value. We've heard a lot of concerns about the fact that the school board will benefit from this, but we ourselves did not create the assessor's decision to raise the value of anyone's property. And I think that's gotten a little lost in the discussion, and I'd like to bring that back as the central focus, that we have not raised our millage rate, but we are the recipients of the property tax value increase.
Anyone else? Mr. Johnson?
You're right, we have not raised the rate. However, we're still raising taxes on most residents of Chatham County by about 10%. Cost of living on everything is getting more and more expensive with inflation. Every month, the inflation numbers are roughly either at or above what most experts say it should be at. We in this body and at other government bodies, we talk about affordable living and affordable housing. The easiest way to not have affordable housing is taxing people out of their homes. Landlords are not going to eat their small margins a lot of them already have in their profits because of taxes. So they were going to pass on that money on to people who are renting from them. We need to be able, in the Stevens Day, for people who have that exemption on their primary, that only does so much. It doesn't. They do add cost of living to that every single year as well. So we already stated that we're estimating to have about 3% more in revenues. Right now, we have about 8% less in expenditures, which is about 11% right there. I think we need to be able to not only, we need to fund the programs that we need to in our district. We also need to take a really good look at everything within the district, like the superintendent suggested, where we can save those monies, where we can reallocate the funds where it needs to be. But we should not be able to do it on the backs of the citizens of Chatham counties. You might not have heard. I mean, I'm in real estate. That's what I do. People love the fact that their home values are going up, but they also don't like the fact that their taxes are going up because they feel like we keep asking for more and we're getting the same results as we have in the past. That's what I'm hearing, and that's why I cannot and I did not, with the tentative, support this, and I will not support this, because we need to learn as a government agency how to run it as more of a business and not just as a bureaucracy.
So you're saying if someone calls you to sell their home tomorrow and their property value has gone up thousands of dollars, you're going to suggest to them that they not sell at the new price, but sell at the cost that their property was a year ago? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying.
It sounds like you want your cake, you want to eat it too, that, you can go out and help these persons who have a higher value on their property sell their home and get that benefit. Now, they'll get that benefit, but we're not doing our job properly, because in doing that and getting that extra money, they're also causing the Board of Education to be in this situation where we are.
I'm not saying that I would not suggest them doing it at the highest possible
All right.
dollar.
I just want everybody to really think about those persons who are benefiting because their property values have gone up.
Mr. Katchmar, then Ms. Hoskins-Brown.
That analysis also only applies if you actually sell. If you're not selling, your taxes do go up. But when we first talked about this budget and the millage rate, I supported the budget, and I still support the budget, and I supported keeping the millage rate where it was at 17.631. If you look at our history, we cut the millage rate 1.5 mils in the last couple of years before last year. But the information we had 2 months ago is different than the information we have today, which is why I asked the questions about our tax collections and our actual expenditures. The information we have today is that collections have been strong. We're going to end the year, back of the napkin math, 3 to 5% over budget, and general fund budget is $508 million. So even if we end up 5%, that's $25 million in excess collections. We then have savings and vacancies that haven't been filled. We were at 77 to 82% in actuality, whereas over last year we were at 92, 93%. Because of we've made expenditures in other places for temp services, et cetera. I'm not sure what the math looks like there, but there are some savings in that we didn't actually expend money. And then our fund balance, I've always advocated for more than a 2-month fund balance. I was fine with 3. I'm even fine with 3.5. We're already there. And you said that instead of using fund balance in the budget we just passed, we might add to fund balance given the excess expenditures. So putting all that in the hopper today, I would not support a rollback to 16 mills, but I do think given where we are, a small rollback of 0.35 might be appropriate, and it would take us to where we actually need to be on the budget that was passed. So it's not changing that budget, but given that we're going to have excess money over what we thought we would have 2 months ago, I don't see the risk, particularly where our fund balance is over 3.5 months. So I'm throwing that out there for discussion. If there's board support, I'll make a motion. But when you look at the actual budget and the math, it looks like we can still support the budget we passed on our existing coffers and collections over the next year.
Oh, okay. Ms. Grabowski, Dr. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to address the mythology of renters being most impacted by this. I think that, yes, mathematically, it's entirely possible. Philosophically and socially, it's likely. But there's always a complaint du jour whenever we don't do an active rollback. So in the time that I've been on the board, the most common one that comes is, I don't have any kids in the system, but I'm paying these high taxes. And we listen to that, we sympathize. We don't ever comment at any of these hearings because it's not for us to comment, but we hear people say that. We don't have nearly as many people coming forward to say, my kid had a great experience. Thanks so much. It's worth every tax dollar I paid. But we do sometimes hear that. We hear that there's the de facto tax increase because of the increase in the asset, but that's kind of what you're looking for when you buy real estate. You're hoping that your house is worth more later than it was the day that you bought it. We tend to look at real estate, those who are fortunate enough and privileged enough to be able to buy real estate, because we're talking about erosion of people's privilege when we're talking about what we are calling an increase. But that's the way that we look at healthy real estate, is that you buy something that you hope will appreciate. I did hear the woman who spoke today who said that the growth of their asset is now kind of inversely related to their income as a senior citizen. That's a challenge. That's a real challenge that I was able to hear. Not, I'm not going to profit as much and I'm going to have to charge my renters more. I heard that more loudly than I heard I'm not going to get as much profit, because to me that's a real personal impact. I want us to stop infantilizing low-wealth people and coming in here representing their interests as though they don't have the ability to talk about the impact of a tax increase or raises in rent themselves. I want us to have people to stop coming in here telling us that they're speaking for the renters without bringing any renters with them. I find that personally offensive. I want it to stop. I work with a lot of renters. I pay the salary of renters. I live next door to renters. And no renters are coming to me saying this. So stop borrowing something that you think is going to be impactful to make a point about why you don't want to pay taxes. To me, it's more respectable just to say, I don't even want to pay that. I hear that and I would respect that. Stop stealing something from a marginalized community and selling it to represent your privilege. It's absolutely reprehensible.
Okay. Yeah. Denise, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think we all recognize that cost of living is going up, that expenses are going up. Our expenses are going up as well. We've had a lot of conversation about that. A lot of those expenses are expenses that we inherit from mandates from the state, from the teacher retirement system in which we are required to participate, health insurance, which we are required to fund. So our costs are going up too, and I think it's important for us to recognize that. One thing I do want to state real quickly about the language that some people may have seen in regards to the ads and the notices, because I've had several people ask me, why are you raising your millage rate? We're not raising our millage rate. That is the language that we are required by state law to use when we are advertising if we are not rolling back. So I just want that to be clear, because it is very confusing. It's very confusing for all local governments and for the school board. I believe, Mr. Jackson, if you can clarify that some of the savings that Mr. Katchmar was just talking about, we actually amended the budget in that last reading and added additional funds from some of those savings to fund increases for our police and some of our other positions with some of that savings. Is that accurate?
In the budget,
Yes.
some of the amendments today, we're using some of those savings to fund capital projects improvements. There probably will be an additional amendment next month where we will come back and do the same using FY23 savings. But some of the savings, again, from last year, we did amend the budget to provide additional resources.
Okay. And I appreciate Dr. Hoskins-Brown's comments about renters. You know, I used to be a renter. I'm now a homeowner. Been on both sides. And I'm a huge advocate for affordable housing. I do a lot of work with affordable housing in my professional role. And affordable housing is incredibly important for our entire community, for our teachers, for many of our staff. But our charge is education. That is our number one priority, is education. We have a literacy plan. We heard Dr. Watts talk about how she is going to elevate that literacy plan and that is going to be our primary focus. We already are not fully funding the literacy plan as it was. And I'm not trying to imply that it's going to be more. I think that Dr. Watts has made some great points already in how she is going to look comprehensively and not looking at increasing. However, we have challenges in our district that have to be made. And unfortunately, none of the people came here that shared with me that our millage rate isn't high enough, because we need to have a focus on education. People will criticize that we compare ourselves to other large districts. That is not saying that, you know, we need to, you know, compete with them, but it is a metric that is important to consider when we look across the board at the way in which education is funded in Georgia, because such a large percentage of our budget has to come from our local taxes because of the funding system in the state of Georgia. So that's the reason we make that comparison to the other large districts. So I think at this time, we know we also are in a tenuous economic situation. At this point, I'm not comfortable rolling back our budget. I think we need to give Dr. Watts an opportunity to come in, make recommendations, and look forward to maybe being able to look to roll the budget back in subsequent years. But at this point, I would like for us to maintain our current millage rate as it is.
Okay, Ms. Hall.
Okay, this will be my final comment on the matter. Last month, I brought up the plight of about 900 of our employees who have been in service to us for 25 years or more. And at that time, I questioned why we have decided that they will no longer get any step increases, that they will have to depend solely on our cost of living raises. But at 25 years, that's it for you in terms of a yearly increase in your step. And I was told because that was where our scale was. Now, I do know that Dr. Levette was able to move that scale from 20 years to 25 years. I had no idea that we had as many as 900 employees who have been with us that long who are in a standstill because we won't change that scale. So if we have the resources to do that, then let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay, Dr. Ringman.
As always, Dr. Hoskins-Brown is living rent-free in my brain. And we have heard over numerous meetings and I've heard previous years that whenever somebody's tax bill goes up, every landlord just passes that on to their renters. I am definitely in the privileged population that Dr. Hoskins-Brown was speaking on because my wife makes great financial decisions, not me. And I've had rental properties. We have had rental properties. And over the 20 years that we have had rental properties, I have never looked at what the taxes on that rental property are and passing that down to a renter. I don't know, maybe I just am not that much of a capitalist. So I don't think that is what every landlord does, and it's their prerogative if they want to. That aside, I would like to, I was following Mr. Katchmar's line of questioning of Mr. Jackson during we're collecting more and collecting more. I was like, I see where he's building his case here. I need to come sit in on a trial just to watch you in action. I would ping pong it around a little bit. I don't know what a 0.1 or a 0.15 or a 0.2, what that looks like numerically for the district. But if we're gonna have 20 to 25 million more than we thought we were gonna have this year, it might behoove us to take a moment and just ask some questions, think about what that looks like, so that we aren't just building up this really big coffer, and then I do think the state actually comes in and looks at us. So I'm definitely up for having that conversation now. I think now is the time, and the information that was shared during financials definitely makes some sense as to have it now, because we've got more information than we would have had when we would have passed this normally a couple weeks ago.
Mr. Katchmar?
I'm going to put you on the spot. How much is 1 mil?
4
It's
mil
one,
is probably right now about $18 million.
18 million?
Yeah. But I do, before we proceed, honestly, right now, we really don't know what the expenditures are going to end up at the end of the year. For the last couple of years, we may average $10 million of savings, true savings, that will roll over. So I want to put that out there. The second thing is, if we adopt a budget using more of the fund balance, because your current budget that we adopted, we propose to use fund balance. any more, and we try to do that in a conservative manner. Any more, if that increases to $10 million or $15 million, that's a $15 million hole we start the budget process next year with. Then we have to fill in that hole, then move forward. As I mentioned to some of the board members, we don't get additional funds from the state. I don't know when the next time we're going to get additional funds from the state because our population, our FTEs is not increasing. Fortunately, this year we got some additional funds to help pay for the health insurance, but we're not going to get additional funds from the state for growth. So I want you all to keep that in mind if you decide to do any changes to the budget, because that creates a hole next year that we're going to have to dig out of.
Well, and here's how I came up with 0.35. So if general fund is 508 million, 3% is 15 million. So I was being conservative and thinking, okay, if our collections plus our savings on our vacancies, you add them together, even if it was 3%, but it could be more, that's $15 million. A 0.35 mil reduction would be about $6 million, 6.3. So, and let me be clear, I voted for the budget. There were 38 million in unfunded mandates in that budget that we had to cover. TRS, other adjustments, it was 35, 38, somewhere in there. And then the rest of it was board investment in literacy and safety and security. Those were like the three big things, but 30 plus million in unfunded mandates. And so I supported the budget. I voted yes on the budget. What I'm saying is I think we can meet our budget with potentially room to spare and still reduce the millage by 0.35. And I think that's conservative. If we wanted to be more aggressive, we could go up to 15 million. But because of the uncertainties of the economy, because of the uncertainties at end of year expenditures, I'm not pushing for more than that. I'm trying to be reasonable while also understanding where our fund balance is. So that's how I came up with 0.35. It's about 6 million, 6.3 million. And we're projecting maybe double that in excess revenue, accounting for a little bit more in expenditures. That's kind of the math I did in my head really quick.
Okay, Mr. Smith and then Ms. Grabowski.
Thank you, Mr. Sean Cashmar. I thank you for your comments, and I hear you loud and clear. My question would be to you, Mr. Jackson. After hearing what Mr. Sean has said and his explanation, with you sitting in the seat that you sit in, do you feel comfortable? And do you feel that that is an accurate overview that will put us and keep us in a safe space, because education is important and we want to make sure that we're not in a bad spot moving forward financially? Do you feel that that is accurate? Respectfully, Mr. Sean Cashmore.
And you're not going to hurt my feelings, however you answer.
You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings.
Safe space, no. It's not a good position. Because the use of fund balance right now will be operational. If it was a use of fund balance for a one-time expenditure, perfect. We could do that all day long. But for a continuing operation expenditure, that's what it would be right now. And that's going to be something hard to swallow, because, again, that creates a gap, a hole that you're going to start with next year. Now, if you all decided to take $10 million and do a one-time expenditure this year, that's not in the budget next year. It comes out of the budget. If it's a one-time expenditure, we could do something, but something operational that puts us around 10 or 12, $15 million operational, that goes forward. That continues. That doesn't go away.
And one of the pieces of my fear is that while we may be in a spot right now where we could lower it, where would it put us next year? And if we go back next year and have to raise it, we don't know what we're going to be getting ourselves into.
And that's what I'm afraid of.
Gotcha.
At some point, you would have to raise it back up.
I hope that makes sense.
I think it was next, real quick. So I think that
Dr. Bremen.
Dr. Bremen.
he's not paying attention.
Well, I was trying to do
So I agree with Mr. Smith. I think that is a great point, that when we lower it, that's going back up is
It's hard. It's hard.
very hard.
Very hard.
Very hard. And it's not something we want to have to do either, honestly. I mean, I hope that we never have to go up. But the other thing that I think we need to be mindful of, and I appreciate, Mr. Jackson, you bring up the difference between a one-time cost and a continual operational cost when we're looking at our fund balance. The other thing I think we need to be mindful of is we know we are reaching the end of our ESSER funds that
Right,
we've been able
correct.
to use for an awful lot of expenses. I know we're mindful of that, but I'm still not sure if we have a completely clear picture of what that's going to look like going forward. So again, once we have a more clear picture of how we're going to cover those costs that we have incurred using free money, if you will, once we understand how, the organization may evolve, once we understand the full resources needed to implement the literacy plan in the way in which we need to do it bravely and boldly, then I think it will be time for us to evaluate. And I think with some of the conversations we've already had around the budget committee and starting that process much earlier, it will put us in a much more comfortable position going into next year. But this year, I think there are too many uncertainties right now for us to be able to take this step, in my opinion.
Ms. Hoskins-Brown?
I agree. Thank you. I think it's a matter of not if you're going to pay it, but when you're going to pay it and who's going to pay it. So we went down in our use of fund balance from the first budget that we got, from using 16 million of fund balance to go down to like 3-point-something million of fund balance, because of the revenue that we had coming in and because of adjustments that were made in the budget process. If we were to go down, I agree. I mean, there two persons who spoke before me kind of addressed the point that that I was thinking, is that if we roll back or attempt to roll back this year, we're going to need it next year when these special funds that we got because of our unfortunate pandemic became available. It's going to be coming. And so if folks want to look at a process to roll back and then have folks hold on to some of their money now and then be asked for it again next year, if that's something that is attractive to the constituents that are calling you and saying that this is an important move, I'm not particularly obstructionist about this. The work of the district will have to be paid for. We're going to have to do it in some way, in some time. I would love for Dr. Watts to spend this year figuring out ways that the budget could be cut by $50 million and still provide all of the services and everything we need. If she could do that, that would be awesome. But the likelihood is not there for that to be the case. I look for our staff to continue to find us ways to be more effective with the funds that we receive, while at the same time delivering all the bells and whistles that people want, from neighborhood to choice. And that is our challenge, is that the things that we offer by choice are some of the things that are extremely expensive and provide those once in a lifetime, once in a community opportunities for our young people. And I'm not willing to cut those for our young people. So I don't think that doing a back of the envelope calculation in this meeting is the best way for us to demonstrate stewardship. I wonder why these recommendations are not more timely. We've had small group meetings, we've had workshops, our staff is available, we have a budget committee in a way. I think that these are thoughtful considerations that we could have come up before now. If there is a benefit to waiting and allowing the people whose role it is to consider these things for us to activate and move forward, I'm happy to consider these things later. But I wonder what has been the obstacle for this discussion before now?
Johnson.
First off, I want to comment on the whole renters thing, and that I deal with renters and landlords and people who buy and sell houses all the time. People who are selling houses right now are very happy because of where everything is. Landlords are not happy because they're breaking. A lot of them right now are breaking even at best. Also, what a lot of people, I guess, I don't see anyone talking about is all the new construction projects that's going up, all the warehousing that's going up. That's going to just add to it. I appreciate Mr. Cashmar trying to find some sort of common ground in the middle. I just knowing all of the new construction that's happening in West Chatham, not just in Pooler and in unincorporated, but also in Savannah by New Hampshire High School and K8 and Port Wentworth. There's so much growth going on out there that what we have right now on the tax rolls is going to be very, very small compared to what we have in the next 2, 3, 5 years. So I needed to say that. I needed to point that out, and I appreciate Mr. Cashmar for trying to find some sort of middle ground.
Mr. Kachmar.
I mean, it's not even a middle ground. And to be clear, we just got this information for this meeting, which is why I didn't bring it up earlier, Dr. Hoskins Brown, but thank you for throwing that shade at me.
That wasn't shade, but we got this 2 weeks ago.
No, we didn't.
We didn't get our board packet 2 weeks ago?
I didn't.
Oh, well,
but-
I got mine 2 weeks ago.
Well, congratulations. This is the first opportunity we've had to talk about this. And all I'm really trying to do, again, let me be clear, I voted for the budget, right? With the $35 million in unfunded mandates, the literacy program, the extra spending, where the board decided it had priorities. All I am saying today is when you do the math, we can support our existing budget that I supported and voted for with our excess revenues, our lower than expected expenditures carrying over from this year. That's what I'm saying.
Dr. Watts, welcome. You still want this job? Okay, all right. I know, right? I was so encouraged by your presentation today. And I'm going to get around to the budget. I was so encouraged that one of the things that you stress is looking at the organization and finding out what we need and what we don't need. I'm going to disagree with Dr. Hoskins Brown. I think you probably can find $50 million. Okay? And, you know, I know some people in this board don't like to hear me say this. This is the people's money. This is not our money. I will tell you, I was moved. I was so moved by those two ladies that came and spoke today. The two older ladies. The one lady was a widow, and the other lady. They spoke from their heart. And one of the things I keep telling people is, please show up and talk to us. Because we listen. I don't think we did. By some of the comments today, I don't think we did. And shame on us. This is probably a foregone conclusion that this is going to be voted through. So be it. That's, you know, that's how this system works. But one thing that you will hear from the public a lot, and that's why I'm so glad you're here, Dr. Watts, is ROI. Let me tell you something. When we get these kids reading at grade level, when we get those results, you're not going to hear that much complaining. What people are upset about is we keep going, asking them for more money, asking for more money, and we're not producing what they want. This is, and let me clarify this. I'm speaking for me and from what I've heard, and I know a lot of you have heard other things, and that's okay. But I'm so glad you're here, Dr. Watts. I look forward to what's going to happen in the next few years. And I really would love it if we could approach budgeting from a standpoint of what, I'm a Libra, striking that delicate balance of what we need and helping out the public. And I look forward to that. Mr. Kachmar, I thank you for your suggestion. And I will ask if anyone would second that. Do you want to make a motion, Mr. Kachmar?
Let me find my mouth. Move to amend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I move to amend the motion to reduce the millage rate by 0.35 for a total mill of 17.281.
Do I have a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Okay, so we'll now vote on the amendment. It's getting late. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. 3-5, thank you. Okay. Now, do we now have to go back to the original motion? Okay. The original motion was that we accept the millage rate at 17.631, correct? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Five, 3. Okay.
I think we have one. Oops.
And, we are safety briefing time.
Oh, we have one final item.
Oh, you have one more?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Wellness Center renovation project. The Division of Operations is requesting a budget amendment for Savannah-Chatham County Public Schools Wellness Center. The transfer of funds will be used for construction, FF&E, outside printing, security, additional design services, CMA services, reprographics, and technology. The summary of the proposed budget adjustments are as follows. We're using $600,000 from, again, teacher vacancies as we've been discussing, transferring to the contribution to other funds, which we'll create a budget in Fund 308 to fund this particular project in the amount of $600,000. Thus be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board approve the Wellness Center renovation project budget amendment. That was already approved. Already? Oh, shit.
It was in consent. That's what I thought.
Overachiever. The board already approved that action on consent agenda on item 7.14.
All right, okay. Now we will have the safety briefing.
Good evening. I'm Sergeant House with the Campus Police, the Board of Education. Please remember the most useful comments are those that are related to the board matters of policy over which the board has jurisdiction. Speakers have a maximum of 3 minutes in which to speak. At the discretion of the board chair, that time may be lessened due to the number of speakers signed up and the agenda of the meeting. See Board Policy BI, Public Participation in Board Meetings. All comments shall be made in a professional manner that is not disruptive to the board meeting. Guests should avoid name-calling towards staff, board members, and should avoid using profanity. Please follow the instructions of the board chair who presides over the meeting. The board chair reserves the rights to call anyone out of order who violates the rules of public appearance. The board further established rules, conducts in accordance with the Official Code of Georgia 20-2-58C3. Through Board Policy BCBI, Public Participation and Public BC Board Meeting, decorum in board meetings. We appreciate your interest in our work of our school system. Guests may leave a printed copy of their notes or supportive material for the board to review. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we only have one person here that is signed up. Maggie Miller? She's not here? Okay. All right. I will accept my motion to adjourn. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Just kidding. All in favor? Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming out.